Tier 1 is called the crowded top, and it's becoming increasingly more crowded. And the newcomer is the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Hell yeah, brother.
Are they capable of winning the NBA championship as is?
Brendon, I'm skeptical, but I want to find out. I understand impulses to make trades for them.
Out, typically.
Well, okay, I understand what you're doing to me right here, but let me explain what I'm trying to say. I could see a world where they can make trades and make additions and be aggressive and go for it. And I think that could be really fun. Lauri Markkanen is a name I still think I like for them in terms of fit and what he could provide for them. There's other names you could seek out and find that could be available that I like. Even just getting a bigger center you trust a little bit more than what they have to just eat some bully ball for Chet for some of these possible playoff series is something I don't hate. But they're also just doing something so unique in this modern NBA that we don't get to see very often of a young team with a specific style, with a guy that is, I think, in the MVP race in Shea, with Chet, who is just unbelievable, and I think probably at this point I believe he still is the favorite for Rookie of the Year in terms of the betting odds and has been contributing on two ends of the floor to winning. They have signature wins. I don't know if they're fully capable of running the gambit right now because it would be kind of so out of line with how this often works, what history tells us about how teams get to titles and wins them. But I want to see them try. I want to see how far they can push this and what they learn from it as they build this out forward. That's really what I want now. Is I want to see take this as far as you can and then evolve from there. That's what I want.
Yeah, you know what I was thinking about as a comparison point to describe what I think the Thunder should do at the deadline is they need to find their Bellinelli and Ilyasova trades. Remember the first process Sixers team that broke out and they got Marco Bellinelli and Ersan Ilyasova, and it was just, we need some vets who play basketball the way we play it and don't make mistakes and can shoot. And they got that. They plugged those guys into what Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid and JJ Redick and everybody else, Dario Saric, were doing on that team. And I believe they won 50 games, and I think that was the year of the confetti series against Boston in the playoffs, and had some moments there, and they were off to the races as a young core. That's what I feel like the Thunder need, and I think one of the things is going to be some kind of size because they absolutely cannot rebound. They're bottom 3 in both offensive rebound rate and defensive rebound rate as a team. You see, there are just not even the best players, not even the biggest, most physically overwhelming guys in the league, but most of the centers that Chet Holmgren faces are able to box him out without much of an issue. And he just isn't a huge factor on the glass. And even on the nights when he grabs a bunch, it's like, okay, well then who else, right? Because Jalen Williams is like their power forward. And, he in 2005, he would have been playing shooting guard. So it's just not tenable.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the things that they need. I also do think that they need a shooter. Like, how long can you ride Lou Dort being a 40+% guy this season? Isaiah Joe is nice. What happens to Kassan Wallace when it's like, hey, Rook, you're going to need to knock down 40% of your open threes for us to win multiple playoff rounds. Hope you don't mind that. You know what I mean? Like, I like a little more security there. So those would probably be the two things. Does that sound right to you? Or are there other needs I'm missing?
No, I mean, I think the rebounding one is it. I think that's both some Chet insurance and protection, and you're going to see some bigs out west. Like, you could see the Wolves, who play two bigs and are pretty physical, and you could see some issues there, even if there's ways they cause issues the other way. You could see Anthony Davis in the way the Lakers play. You could see a certain guy named Nikola Jokic. Even if they've beaten Denver twice in Denver this year, it's still Jokic. There's a litany of bigs that can kind of run at them in a certain way, and just some kind of size would do them well.
Who checks the boxes you're describing? Because when you say it that way, it makes me think it's a little bit bigger than an Ersan Ilyasova level addition. If you're saying somebody who can guard the guys you just listed off, that feels like
it's
a lot.
Not even good. It's not guard. I don't know if it's guard so much as like, can you foul them sometimes? Can you help us eat like 10, 15 minutes just to navigate it this year. I mean, I don't know if I'm them just because of how good Chet is that I want to go and expunge like real assets on a center right now. Even if you have all of these assets.
Yeah, the people who talk about them acquiring like a real center, Chet is a center. I've heard that out there. And I do not understand it.
It's like, do I? Well, okay. So the name that I heard read on a podcast was them talking like, okay, should they just like try to like get Jared Allen if the Cavs need to pivot? It's like, why? Like, I think that's overpaying for really what you kind of need. So like Robert Williams, if he hadn't gotten hurt, would have been like the right level of guy where it's like you don't really need him a ton, can play off and like really roam. We saw him do that, but he's hurt and he's not available. And then I think that makes your market like a little bit trickier in some ways as well, right? Like I don't know exactly.
That's the other part of it that trips me up that you mentioned at the top is playing with this team is not going to be easy. I don't know. Like, I don't think people realize.
They ask so many questions of other teams. No, they ask so many questions of other teams that other teams cannot answer. And yes, I understand how young they are, and I understand like the concern, and I think it's valid. But they're also going to like get the Wolves and cause them a bunch of problems because Chet's a fucking alien. And Shea is shit.
But I also just like
they're going to cause problems in this
too.
way.
Like they do crazy stuff. Like basically Isaiah Joe and Kassan Wallace are fours. They start possessions in the paint. You know, they have these moments where you just have to kind of be okay letting the J-Dub or SGA show roll on for a while and just put your head down and compete like crazy on defense. And their defense, speaking of, is one of the more connected units in the league, which is crazy for how young they are, but also speaks to the difficulty of integrating a new piece into the team, right? So I think that's another part of why I'm really skeptical of the value of really going and adding even somebody like Lauri Markkanen, who we all agreed when we brought Wes on and talked about those trades that, of course, he fits kind of the mold of, okay, they need a guy that size, they need a shooter, whatever. But I just think the idea of plugging something really new that's pretty big into this team is much easier said than done, considering how cohesive they look. And they're winning anyway. So I think it's a big ask for the coaching staff, for the other players, and for the player that they would bring on to make some kind of huge addition. But I also feel like, to your point, they could face a team and just feel like they're kicking themselves because one of these obvious weaknesses bites them and they lose in the first round in 5 and end up kind of disappointing all of us relative to expectations.
The other way this could go, too, I would say kind of the last thing I have on them is maybe there's some value, Brendon, getting to the playoffs and seeing how you bend and how you break and how you don't bend and how you don't break, and then let the playoffs kind of make an informed roster decision instead of right now, which even if we think Markkanen's a great fit, and I think he would be, or if you like bought a veteran like Bojan Bogdanovic, should be like a bigger 4 and all of that stuff, and it'd be relatively low cost on the fringe of your rotation. Maybe there's some value in letting your young guys get into the playoffs like this for the first time and swim or sink, pass or fail, figure it out, and use what you see from those guys in the playoffs to make informed decisions about what your roster's like and figure it out from there.
Yeah.
There is rush, but like there's not so much rush that they're like no one's window is forever, but if there's any team that has a little bit of room to maybe hold off just a little bit on being really aggressive, it's probably them.
Yeah, of course it's them, but I think the Giddey part of it is the most time sensitive aspect of this whole thing, because not only are you probably selling low right now, but maybe not. I don't know. You're definitely selling low. Is it the lowest? I don't know. Maybe he just is less of a dominant NBA player than we would have thought. I have no way of answering that question, but any opposing front office might feel that way. Okay, what is he really adding? Do I really want to invest in that situation right now? And then if they don't trade him, now they have to be the team to extend him this offseason.